How you doing? Um, I learned that I'm not the only one that traveled very far and to whatever distance to come here today to see you. You're one of the most amazing beings that I've ever came across. And I have a couple of burning questions. I've made this my about 4 or 5 years ago. I've made this my life, and there's just a couple of roadblocks that I've had a little trouble getting around. But to keep it, the first question that's relevant to what you're saying is you've said a couple of times in the past too that whatever we're struggling with, that we have created it all. But then there's also a second part that we've came in with a certain theme that we had to explore.
Yes.
So if there's something that's happened in our lives that's so hard to like change our perception of or whatever, I think the one that feels better is that we created it all. But the part, but I guess, so just to clarify, there is that other part where we may not have created it, like the 2-year-old that passes, or the breakup, right? We may not have created it. It may have been a theme that we had to explore, like you and yourself in a relationship that dissolved. True say?
Yes, except for the wording that we did not create that, because we still created that.
Before we came.
Correct, but that's the you that I'm always talking about anyway. The you before you came is the you that's here now with you today. It is your higher consciousness.
So the law of attraction in this being, that we've created certain experiences in this being through law of attraction, you're not referring to that. You're referring to, that's the clarification I need. Like,
In a way, you never create anything from this point of view, from this place, right? So when I say you create your reality, I am talking about the consciousness that literally creates the substance that we see as the wood and the walls and this and your life and the things and the people that you meet. So just like when you're dreaming at night, your consciousness, not the one that you're aware of being usually, unless you're having a fully lucid dream, at which point that's the analogy for being awake to who you truly are in a way. But in most cases, when you're dreaming at night, you're assuming yourself to be a body inside of a dream. But who's creating the dream? It's your consciousness, right? Who's putting in place all the elements and the illusion of time and space? It is your consciousness, not the thought of who you think you are. So similarly here, when I say you create your own reality, what I mean is that A, you as the overall consciousness are generating the illusion of form that we see. And in whatever way it shows up, it's created from that higher consciousness. However, that higher consciousness has a wide range of things it can bring to you. It's not that it's limited to what it's creating right now. So you as an assumed person consciousness are still in control of that to a high degree because, like I said, it cannot come to you in certain ways if you believe it doesn't come to you in certain ways. So there's free will at the level of your higher consciousness, which actually physically, even though this is not physical, not really, that which physically creates your reality within this dream experience still has to honor your free will that you have developed over time. Free will always has to honor free will. So there is, in a sense, then, separation that is generated partially naturally and partially unnaturally and unnecessary. But there is a partially necessary or relevant separation between what then generates a personal self as opposed to the higher self fully being in full knowingness of itself and not creating another extension of itself. There is some relevance to that extension, to that separation, but it can be thinned out, it can be made more and more transparent. That's what we do through self-realization and self-actualization. We become more transparent to the point where this starts to feel like a bit of a shell, an empty shell. You no longer identify with it. You see that you are that consciousness that is generating these shells and these experiences and the emptiness in form. So then you start generating less and less of the illusion of lower self and higher self because the vibration that you're choosing through the way that you're understanding who you are, you follow so far? Yeah. That the vibration of that quality, the vibratory quality of that energy that you're exuding here on this level of free will is becoming more and more in alignment with the actual frequency of the non-physical self that you are that generates this illusion of physicality. So the less there is a difference, the more alignment there is, the better you'll feel, but also the less of a separation you'll create between you and you. And so then you can start to understand that that you is the same that you were before this physical life, before this physical illusion, before this physical dream, before this physical extension. But that never goes anywhere. It's not like you become from that suddenly this. It's simultaneous. So that higher level is still walking with you all the way. That's still truly who you are ultimately, more so than this. So when you are creating your reality, it's because you as a personal consciousness, through alignment, are allowing the things you truly desire to come through you. In that sense, you're responsible for what happens to you in this life. It is through your attitude, it is through your beliefs, that you will either allow for that true self to come forth in form in the most effortless way, or not. In a sense, those that are out of alignment are more creating their own reality from a personal level than those that are in alignment. Those that are in alignment have reached a transparency to where their higher consciousness is effortlessly moving through. Whereas those that are very much out of alignment and in separation and in arrogance and in insistence, they are actually more taking on the burdens of being the creator of their reality. Not that they're very good at it, because the brain doesn't have a lot of capacity to create physical reality and change space-time around. It cannot really do that. So someone that's really stubborn and insistent upon its misaligning ways of thinking and believing, they are actually more responsible for the way they create their reality. Whereas the person that's in alignment is simply allowing it all to come through them. And therefore the goodness of it, the amazingness of it, the connection of it, the realization of it will have a way greater effect and efficiency, because now you're allowing that consciousness to change around space-time realities for you on your behalf, so to speak. So the things that happen early on in your life, for example, here, are that you setting up a certain template for experience that it knows is highly conducive or probable or likely for the personally assumed separate self to then bounce into things, bump into things, and be guided in a certain way, so that by a certain age, when it realizes it's not just a separate self, it's actually a co-creator of its experience, it has not gone off course too much. That is the template for the youthful life. The youthful life is set up in such a way because it knows that by the very rules of this society, the agreements that this collective has made, which is that a young person simply does not have full knowledge, does not have full responsibility and ability to be who they are, and so higher self knows that that is part of the agreement. There's other civilizations where that's not the case, or not as much the case, but in our civilization it is the case. And so it needs to, in a sense, hold a certain vibratory pattern on its behalf, so it generates a certain playing field, in a sense, set in stone, although it also changes, where certain things are highly probable to be brought into the early ages of that life, so that from the unconscious place of being a kid, not knowing how to navigate and use your consciousness, you are most likely to not go off course too much, so that when you actually empower yourself, ideally around the age of 6, 7, but in our age it's usually like when you die, right before you die. But ideally, around the age of 6 or 7 years old, you start to really recapture that free will, that co-creatorship, and you start to realize, hey, I came here with a purpose, I came here with a reason, there's more to this than meets the eye. And from that place onwards, the more you realize that you're actually having free will, and that you can decide how you feel and how transparent you are, and how aligned you are, that's when you regain the responsibility. That's when you actually recapture the free will that's kept in storage for you, non-physically, up until that time. Now, for most people, this keeping in storage of your free will continues for all of their life, to a large extent. So it's not until we wake up and empower ourselves and take control of our destiny, so to speak, take responsibility for who we are, why we're here, what we desire, that we're in alignment, that we're getting impulses and intuitions, and that we start paying attention. It's not until that moment that we really start to download more and more of our free will, and then we really do start to become creators of our own reality, because we are regaining that free will, because we're regaining alignment, because we're getting closer back to where we started. In this life, we're transcending the rules of the physical civilization that we agree to be a part of, to such an extent that we're still a part of it, but we're also very transparent to ourselves beyond this life.
Can I just give a real life example?
Yes.
So just on that. So basically, because I think a lot of people will learn off it as well, is we first learn the knowledge of this, yeah, a lot of times, and then it comes to a point where we try to implement the knowledge. So when I started implementing the knowledge, the processes or whatnot, my life, it got a little bit, everything started falling into place. I'm feeling better more often, and then it took a horrible turn.
Nice.
And everything changed. So that's the part I don't understand. That once I started implementing it, feeling better, it flipped over.
Did you flip, or did experiences show up in a way that you were resistant to?
Hopefully I'm not on that camera. So
You're not.
a harmonious relationship, marriage, kids. But the weird thing was, it just showed, some kind of just fell in my lap, showed itself. So a couple of years prior, I looked, I searched, was suspicious, let it go, came across this type of information. Abraham Hicks became life, resonated with it massively, went on, studied it. Then after studying it, I started implementing it. And then I wasn't looking.
You weren't looking for the negative data?
Yeah, I wasn't looking for my whatever I was suspicious about in my relationship. And then it just kind of fell in my lap. How I interpreted that was my higher self showing me, because I was not looking, like it showed me it. And then that changed, like, not a new chapter. After that, it's a new book, right? So before I learned all this information, when I was looking in 2010, had I found what I had found, there'll be a couple of people dead, and I'll probably be one of them or in jail. Took the journey, found what I found when I wasn't looking, but it flipped the whole script. So, and in the last 2 years, I've spent trying to change my perception of the very thing that I learned, because I know if it feels bad, like you say, my highest, like betrayal, deception feels horrible. That's my higher self telling me that it's not true. Universally, I'm looking at it different than my higher self is looking at it. So, but I've just battled with like trying to, like I understand all that, like in every nanosecond, I'm different. I'm not even the same person that was in that relationship, and nor is that person either, right? But if you could just shine a little bit on that, and it also ties into the second part, which is when we're in day one and we're learning this stuff, we kind of tend to preach it to our loved ones, our family. And then the day two process that you talk about, everything goes haywire. So we're the Pollyanna, the positive person, and now everyone's looking at us like, your life is it's destroyed. Like it's horrible. So I guess we shouldn't teach anything until we're in day 3, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty smart statement right there.
And amongst the chaos, we know that if we follow our passion passionately, that that's the key, everything will fall into place. But I can't get to my passion because there's chaos all around me that needs my attention.
What was the last thing you said?
The chaos around me needs my attention.
Therefore,
so, I know that if I do my passion passionately, everything will fall into place. But the chaos around me needs my attention. So I did the 48-hour thing.
Okay.
And it was kind of, so the 48-hour thing, the last thing I'll say is, do we need to be in a Buddhist mindset for 48 hours? Or could I unplug, go into a room and do my passion passionately for 48 hours? I'm a writer, I'm an artist, and just write songs after songs. Would I get the best benefit out of those 48 hours doing that process?
Yes, I think so. The latter.
And whatever's going on just unplug, detach from those circumstances, and just
Yes, my friend. So a few things. One is chaos does not require your attention. It's not absolutely true. I understand it feels that way and seems that way. But in many ways, chaos does not require our attention. In fact, oftentimes it's better to not pay too much attention to it, as little as you can, while still maintaining some integrity to the agreements that you might have made. But have the majority of your focus be not on the chaos, because whatever you focus upon, you will exacerbate, you will increase. As it sounds from your story, what I see is that this is very close in a way to a thematic change that I was talking about, like an abrupt thematic change. So the things that you have attracted to yourself before you really woke up and took responsibility and started implementing these things was a life of layeredness. Does that make sense? A life of not everything is obvious and clear and transparent. As it seems on the surface, other things are going on. That was a reflection of your mixed frequencies from the past. Does that make sense?
yeah.
When you started waking up and you started implementing and making drastic changes to your vibration and understanding, in other words, you became more transparent to yourself. Now life will have to reflect that, and suddenly what was not transparent became transparent, or fell in your lap, as you say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense.
So that which you created before, it's not that your new state created the chaos or the deception. Your old state created the chaos and the deception. Your new state brought it to the light.
Right.
Does that
And
make
so
sense?
Abram talks about your relationships will either become that vortex relationship or they will disappear from your experience. So in my case, it disappeared from my experience, and that's because of what was not obvious became obvious.
Yes, that past is not compatible with where you're actually going. So you see, as horrible as it may have seemed, that horribleness was a reflection of the accumulation of the old state. The new state brought it to light so that you can actually continue to live a life that is honest and that is reflective of who you are. And it may have come with some day two challenge, but ultimately it was in alignment, and it was as a reward, so to speak, of your increased transparency and clarity within yourself. The more aligned you become, the more old stuff sort of shows up, as long as it's relevant to show up. If there's things that are still part of your life, like not everything that's negative will show up when you increase your frequency. Only those things will show up very evidently when you increase your frequency. Negative things, so to speak, or shadow things show up that are either still held on to, still an integral part of your experience or situation, such as your relationship at that time. That is too grave of a thing, that's too prominent of a thing to not be revealed. So it had to be revealed. There was no other way around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but was it supposed to be revealed so I can embrace it and stay in this relationship?
So that you could let go
or
of it.
so I can let go of the relationship?
So that you could let go of it, is my sense
Because
of
they
it.
have to leave one way or another, right?
Correct.
Either through death or through just detachment, as Bashar says, right?
Through manslaughter, yeah.
I know, as not me,
Right,
as
right.
Bashar says, that person would leave your experience either through
Yeah,
death
yeah,
in a parallel reality or
Exactly.
whatever.
You will shift realities, and they will just disappear, or they will whatever. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
So this is what I'm saying is this is a good thing. Horrible as it may have seemed, it was bringing to light the transparency that you are. It is law of attraction working out for you. The challenge for you has been and is perhaps to some extent still to make it through that day two challenge, where the old starts to crumble away from your experience and all your attachments are shown, and to still regain or keep maintaining the light of day one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then
Your
say so.
realization.
It just don't matter how much things are seeming to need our attention. Detach from that and just
Alignment needs our
Align.
attention. Only your alignment needs your attention. So whatever feels best, my friend.
so you have to do whatever you got to do in your day, but maintain your alignment as much as.
Correct. And from that space, you will see that you'll have to do less and less of the things that you thought you had to do. They'll just naturally be taken care of for you. More and more. The more aligned you are. Might be gradual, might be instant, but more and more, it will happen effortlessly. You're doing great. Your
Appreciate it.
life is going to be amazing. It was a instant turning point for you. And it's going from this point onward. This whole chaotic thing, this release, is what has allowed you now to have a clean slate, a clean life, a clean theme. This will now allow you to fully become who you intended yourself to be. So it's a great thing. I'm not worried.
Thank you.
Thank you.